All right. Welcome to the Norman Nick Show. I am Norman. Now, today we're going to have a father's rights or parental rights discussion on a number of topics that are coming up. With me, I have a good friend of mine. I got Lamont out of LA. How you doing, my guy?
Chilling, chilling. Good morning, sir. How's everything?
Um, you know, I figured we get into these morning discussions. We might as well, and they're usually
Monotone.
informative discussions back and forth. You know what I mean? We sometimes we don't agree, sometimes we do agree. You know what I mean? So I figured today we'll just get on here and just chop it up and see what's good.
That's right.
So,
See what's good.
what I did want to discuss, a project that we are working on to help out parents right now, out of Maryland. We're actually helping out our good friend Eric Smith with winning strategies. And besides the number of commercials and the number of appearances on podcasts that both of me and you have done together and separately, we're now working on a website that I'm kind of excited about. It's in the works right now, and what we're doing is we're trying to get it set up to where there's like a rating system for that state. And since it's such a small area, it's easy for us to kickstart because there's so much information that we have to assimilate onto the website for just Maryland as well. So did Eric talk to you about this at all, Lamont?
About the actual website, he may have. It doesn't immediately come to mind, though. I don't, he may have.
All right,
Possible.
so he came to me and he was like, "Yo, I want to escalate like the whole Yelp review system, but I want to do it for for fathers, for parents. So let's say you have a shitty mother, shitty father, or whatever, who wants to use the program. They can go through the website and they can actually see which district. And this is what this was I spitball ideas, but they can rate the area where they want to file in court based on where the judges are rated that are more pro father, pro child, or in your view, based on this review rating system that we're setting up just for the judicial area.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think
Uh,
about that?
Sounds like a fantastic idea. Uh, little bit of everything and everybody should actually be on a website like this. When you're dealing with family law, you got a lot of other entities and a lot of other agencies that are going to be a part of this. So I would throw in, social workers, counselors that you're going to come in contact with, um, supervised monitors. Undoubtedly, everybody should be on a website with this idea. But part of it is there's no oversight either. There's no oversight in regards to price. Attorneys and these therapists can charge you anything. There's no set price. There's no set guidance standards in that what an attorney is supposed to provide or what a therapist is supposed to provide, and are they adhering to the contract that you had? Because any issues that I had with my supervised monitor, for example, I had to take back to the judge who wasn't actually her boss. So the whole system is just a giant uh, disaster waiting to happen. Anybody that's been through this knows exactly what I'm talking about. But this idea, a central website that gives you some insight into what you're actually dealing with, the parties involved, is a good idea. It's a great place to start.
Amen. I mean, as far as like even rate, and we were talking about that too, because doing a website, there's layers upon layers of work that you have to do, especially when you start putting in a rating system within within the structure of the website. And if you guys aren't web builders, it's not just as, I mean, you could go on GoDaddy or whatever, like we're doing, and put it together, but it's not something that they offer. And, so we had to buy separate packages to integrate as far as software to put into the website. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to bring on, because I'm not the expert on building websites, but I had to bring on my homeboy Nate, who's part of the Norman Nick show. As far as
Mm-hmm.
Elite Fucker News, he helps me on the back end of that area, and he's building the website for Eric, more or less. And then Once he gets it structured in and everything implanted, then we start putting in stuff like this. Let's see, where we're going to start, labeling these officials that are on, that are involved in the court. So let's say you want to go into Baltimore County, into District 11B, and you want to see who's affecting your rights as far as voting, when it comes down to voting. Not necessarily in primary voting, but even in the, in the 2 year in between, when we're just doing local state voting, for stuff. And you see these judges and, and these lawmakers that are on the ballots, but you don't remember their names. So if you get a mail-in ballot, you can now go to this website and you're going to be able to see these officials on here and what they're about, what they actually stand for. And then we're gonna bring a little like bubbles out, or a little, we're gonna hyperlink it to discussions to our channels, where we talk about these delegates and what they represent when it comes down to voting for these people.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric's got a lot to say when it comes to these people behind the scenes, because he deals with we all play our role as far as fathers' rights advocacy. And with Eric, what I'm proud to be a part of, what Eric's doing is he pushes the delegate work, behind, political laws and stuff. He tries to push all that, and he actually gets in the emails and talks to the delegates. Whereas me and you can get on the podcast and, and mansplain everything, and you know what I mean, and bring on guests or whatever. But I'm pretty proud of what he's doing and what he's setting up, for everybody to come together as a platform and bring all their skills together to bring awareness. Because regardless of what's going on politically, all of us fathers, especially, are in the same boat behind the 8 ball when it comes to the stereotypes of family court.
Oh yeah, in all honesty, if I was going to pick one area to actually focus in, it would be politics. Malcolm X and a lot of black activist politicians have always admonished that all politics are actually local.
Mhm.
You have more power. Your individual voting unit that you have, your individual ballot, has more power locally than it has nationally. Case in point, a lot of people don't know, but if you do know, you do know that the most powerful people in a locally in regards to the law, which includes family law and which includes juvenile dependency, as we had mentioned, would be
Mhm.
in every jurisdiction may be a little bit different. So, and this is speaking towards Southern California, but the three
Mhm.
most powerful people that you're dealing with is the county sheriff, the district attorney, and your border supervisors. Each one of those I'm here in Riverside County in Southern California. Each one of those entities, right? Most people neglect to even fill out that part of the ballot. But each one of those
Mhm.
entities in Riverside County, the vote was determined by 500 to 1,000 votes, because not that many people even participate in, through the vote for the district attorney, county board of supervisor, or the deputy sheriff. Most people don't even. If you ask them, they won't even know who their sheriff is. The reason why
Correct.
I brought up the sheriff and the district attorney, because Norm, let me ask you, who decides what crimes they're going to prosecute?
District attorney.
The district attorney. When you're sitting in, when you're in the, once again, this is Southern California. I don't know if it's the same way in Arizona, but when you go to court, in family law court, who's sitting in court with you? Who's sitting right next to the judge? A county
The
sheriff
state.
deputy. The county sheriff
Yeah, the
deputy.
state.
It is one of the county sheriff deputy's main job descriptions is to enforce court orders, which includes family law court orders, right? So
Correct.
that if I was actually to pick one individual who's the most important person that we should be trying to get on our team, it would be the sheriff deputy. Okay, because he decides what crimes he's going to enforce. It's 100% up to his discretion. And when you additionally consider, the fact that law enforcement has one of the highest rates of divorce
Hmm.
out of any profession, this is something that he should definitely be concerned about. Which begs the question: why is, because I've had the deputy actually come up to me while I was in court and say that, you're getting railroaded, bro.
Damn.
Right? So, I mean, the sheriff deputy actually sits there every day, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and watches that bullshit. He knows the whole shit is full of shit. They know
Hmm.
that. So, once again, like, Eric is on the right track with this. The local aspect of politics, and in this particular, well, everything we do is politics, but the local aspects, on another, yeah, thing I want to bring up, Norm. I went, this was in the middle of this was maybe about halfway through the first year of my divorce, and I'm of the philosophy, bro. You need to be, throwing every, dish that you have in your cabinet at the whole thing. So I went to the district attorney out here has a once a quarter, or he does at least 3-4 times a year, meet the district attorney night. So I
Hmm.
go down here. I go down here to Menifee, Vista area, down here, southern Riverside County, and I walk in there, and to tell you how far behind the eight ball men are, that meet the district attorney night, that room was 90% women. It was 90% women in there. Whatever issues that they have, and that's where how feminists get us. They're organized. They're all on code. They're all on the same page, and they are pushing their agenda, right? I mean, to the I think his name is Hesterin. I did meet the district attorney. He gave me the card, and I did meet his lead investigator. They were very, open. They were listening to what I had to say, because once again, when you see the results of the district attorney race, he wins that race by 1,000, 1,500 votes. That's
Hmm.
not, that is a very narrow margin, right? So they're very receptive to what the public is saying. So he
Yeah.
was like, yeah, he did, it seemed like he was sincere. He was sincerely listening, and he was like, well, here's my lead investigator. He gave me his card. He said, call me, right?
Hmm.
Um, and this is when I was going through the divorce once again. I was having issues with getting my custody order enforced. Um, and then on an interesting aside, the very first Father's Day that I had, my ex-wife withheld custody. I called
Hmm.
911, and I don't know if anybody else has ever experienced this. That the 911 operator, when I told her what the issue was, she was like, "This is all I'm dealing with right now." So that's, I could what goes down on Father's Day, and of the guys that are denied custody on Father's Day, that is a show in and of itself. Norm, just FYI, because
Hmm.
that's the first thing that lady said. It was like, man, this is all I'm dealing with right now. So
I know. I did a video a little while back where they were actually showing the stats of, I think it was Texas. And I think this was about 2 years ago when I first started doing YouTube, and trying to figure out if I was doing crime and trying to separate father's rights from my crime channel or whatever. So now that I'm doing just this, I'll probably refer back to that video here in the description or down below or whatever. But I
uh,
I showed a stat in Texas on Father's Day, I believe it was, or maybe it might have been California, but it showed that the call ratio of
really,
parental alienation on Father's Day versus domestic violence calls, and the amount of parental alienation calls well exceeded the domestic violence calls.
yeah, it's probably off the chain. I mean, I can imagine, just based on what the lady had told me, that they were overwhelmed with nothing but dads trying to get their visitation on Father's Day. So, and once again, just Eric's on the right track. And in my opinion, in California, if I was to create a board of who we should be trying to hit up, it would be your local board of supervisor, the district attorney, who actually that's the lead law enforcement officer in that county, and then your deputy sheriff, the
Absolutely.
sheriff. Don't deal
So
with
I think
local.
we're gonna Go ahead.
But yeah, in California, don't deal with local PD, deal with the county sheriff.
Correct. So I think what we're going to do too with this website, it sounds like I got an echo in the back there. It looks like what we're going to do is we're going to we're not necessarily going to take everybody's information that they have already set up on these websites like this one right here, where it's already set up and it's showing you exactly, because this is state and county owned websites right here as far as like the .govs and everything. So
Hmm.
we're going to use these as our references and link all of our subject matter to these sites so you can see in black and white for yourself and investigate on your own, or go down a rabbit hole for your own, because we both know that, as we tried to advocate, not just advocate, but we advocate, all these years for other
Like that.
fathers that have been in, similar positions. And with that being said, Eric's new website is therealdadvocate.com.
Mhm. No,
So
I like
not
it.
only do we have winningstrategies.org, but we also
Mhm.
have now the real Dadvocate.com. So
Mhm.
this is totally awesome, because starting in Maryland where he's at, we're going to start this website, and like I said, we're going to link everybody so you're going to know exactly who these judges are, their track record, so that way when you go to the polls, for those of us that are serious about being involved as far as the political side of fathers' rights, these judges don't, you're not just voting for these judges or approving these judges on the ballot just because they have the same cultural last name as you, because they may not be on this, just because they have the last name Gonzalez or Johnson or whatever you think is feels comfortable, doesn't mean they see the same things that you see as far as parental rights and stuff. So
Yeah, black people deal with that a lot with the skin folk, ain't kin folk. I get that. I get that completely. But
but it's the ignorance kind of blends everywhere, and not that, and as you guys know, I'm a big fan of Star Wars, so I kind of reference and parallel a lot of stuff to George Lucas, because George Lucas was a pioneer as far as explaining, to a broader audience what he saw in politics and brought it to the main screen.
mhm,
So when I'm explaining to my kids or explaining to an audience and they're, into sci-fi, I can kind of make them see, what is what. And
uh-huh,
when you have your parental rights kind of stripped from you little by little, you
uh-huh,
can kind of see, if you're a fan of Star Wars, how fluid things change as far as the politics in that, timeline,
mhm,
whether you're, from start to finish on all the series.
mhm,
It's kind of like real life, and what we don't get the advantage of is we're only one episode. Most of us only survive one episode when you put us in compared to Star Wars, you know what I mean? So we
mhm.
don't get to see the longevity of what happens from our actions, and realize why we are in the situation we're in from our forefathers, whether it be from generational trauma or from our forefathers politically. So,
Well, I mean, when you talk about the law and marriage and even a relationship with, if you're not married, but a relationship with a man, woman, and child, there's a lot of things that in regards to basic contract law that the state never discloses to men, at least. And you don't become, you become deadly aware of the information once you dragged into court. But there's a concept called informed consent, right? In that, no valid contract can exist unless all parties are aware of the terms and conditions of the contract. And I think that both in regards to marriage and actually parentage, men are not made aware of the operations of family law until it's, dare I say, too late. So I mean, I mean, you don't know. I mean, to me, at the minimum, the state should be forced to produce the statistics on family law every 3 months, in that, the rate at which the state awards primary custody to the mother versus the father. What happens to these children? In all honesty, Norton, that's uh, we've talked about this several times. That is the subject of an entire, you know, page or complete channel, in that, once the children of divorce become adults themselves, their story, right?
Hmm.
There's about three channels that come to mind. Of there's a guy and like two girls that I could think of. I can't think of their name, and I'd like to send them a shout out, but unfortunately I can't remember their name. But they are the children of divorce, and they talk about their experience witnessing their mom play games with their dad, hiding them from their father, keeping uh, um, one of the kids went to the dad, like they're 25, 26 now. And she was like, Dad, how come you never tried to reach out to me? I wish you would have at least called me on my birthday. Right. And then the dad goes in his closet and pulls out all the returned birthday presents that her mom sent back.
Hmm.
So we're talking about 10 years. He kept them. They were still in the boxes in the birthday. I mean, this is getting me choked up thinking about it. But he kept them all in they were still, wrapped in the present wrapping. And from going back, this is your present from your 15th birthday. This is the present this is the dress that I bought you for your prom. He kept all that stuff.
Yep.
So, there's a lot of people that are affected by this, and it's not just dads, but the kids, are affected for the remainder of their lives. This bleeds into how they've already done the stats. This bleeds into how good of a parent the child is going to be, right? The attachments that they have with people, because kids having witnessed this, they're reluctant to. They don't want to put my two youngest kids have already told me they don't want to put their kids through this. They don't even want to get married. They don't.
And, and I think we had this discussion too, as far as a little bit yesterday, as far as like coming into this Trump era with abortion and being scared straight for these kids.
Mhm.
I'm not, I mean, I don't get me wrong. It's easier for me as a single father right now to tell my 18-year-old daughter, my daughter turned 18 on November 1st. So she was
Mhm.
able to vote for Harris. So she has, and all this.
Mhm.
After the fact, her and my mom were panicking. And I was like, this is something that allows you to focus on self. So you're not able just to be, oh, I'll just get an abortion, you know what I mean, type shit. You know what I mean? So now you have to really think about it, because I had to explain to her what a tubal pregnancy was. And I
Mhm.
was like, there's more than one reason that somebody may need to have an abortion. In a tubal pregnancy, you may not necessarily want an abortion, you want to have the baby. But what if the doctor's afraid to do anything to save your life because the tubal pregnancy is considered some type of abortion because of
Mhm.
some gray area in the laws in the state that you're in?
Mhm.
Do you really want to risk that, having premature sex before you're, or not even premature sex, but having sex unprotected before you have a house, before you have a career, or you know what I mean, and the wind behind your back?
Mhm.
So yeah, so it, for me, it's kind of, I'm kind of using the negative as a positive, as far as you know, uh, parental rights and single fatherhood, and you know what I mean. Even with my son, I'm like, if she can't have an abortion, there ain't no oops, my bad type shit. You not dodge that bullet like you hear, old grown folks talk about from the past. But that's probably going to be something in the past now. So now you actually got to think about, what are you worth? Are you really just going to willy nilly spread your DNA around and have all this child support? Because she may not be able to have an abortion, my guy. Worth having a discussion about.
Well, I think that's one of the things that are missed in the whole, body autonomy discussion is the conversation of first being responsible,
Hmm.
engaging in sex with multiple partners, having the responsibility discussion first. I think that's what's missed with a lot of the discussion around abortion. From a father's rights perspective, another thing that I think that's missed is the fact that men are not afforded the same body autonomy rights as women are. If my position on abortion is, at the end of the day, that is that woman's body, so she has ultimate authority over it. However, to suggest that the father, who may be looking down the barrel of a, 18-year child support obligation, uh, you know, men need to be awarded the same body autonomy in that, if a woman has the authority, well, this is the, I always put it like this is the world that we're living in. A man has to pay 18 months, excuse me, 18 years of a child support obligation for a child that he doesn't want. And a child that he does want, he has no authority over if that child is going to be allowed to live or not. So if women have body autonomy, men must have body autonomy as well. A father should be able to say that, look, this child is the result of a wild night in Las Vegas. I don't want anything to do with that child or you. So men need to be given the right to be essentially deadbeats. Fair is fair.
So just to play devil's advocate, you know what I mean? Let's keep it interesting.
Mm.
I can hear the argument. So why don't we, instead of trying to put a Band-Aid over the crack in the dam that's causing, these, one night stands, why don't we just fix the dam itself and try to shame the one night stands? You know what I mean? Maybe that should be something that should be considered now. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
mean,
Like,
because you remember, me and you in the
I mean, it
same
comes down to
generation.
respect of your body. I mean, as a guy, you can't, you're gonna make that excuse. Well, I'm 45, blah blah, because you can have a baby up until you're dead when you're a guy. You know what I mean?
I
So
mean,
you really gonna take that chance?
I mean, but you bring up a very good point, Norm. I mean, that brings up the fact that we are, we the same generation, and 71, going back further than that into the 60s and 50s, right? There was shame with being a divorcee or being an out of wedlock. There was words for it, out of wedlock, right? There was words for it that came with the level of shame. But in
Yeah.
today's society, there's no a shame attached to
Well,
being
because everybody,
a
when everybody's a bastard, you know what I mean? How bad is it being a
word
bastard?
bastard. Out of wedlock, the word bastard. That's what, and people. There were it was they're used. What you're saying right now, there used to
Mhm.
be. We used to do that.
Yeah, I
I mean,
know,
but
I agree. But that's part of that evolution that we live through, but we don't recognize until we look at historical facts.
yeah,
So
this
right
is
now, with the system being so plugged, with leaks, with all these bastards, these one night stand babies,
uh,
women trying to keep a nigga baby, from the football players and the baseball players in spring league and all that. You know what I mean? All the weaponizing of it. I think with Trump, I mean, and again, I'm trying to make light of what everybody is seeing as something as being oppressive, but it makes, as far as women being in control of themselves and respecting themselves, I think this is a forced issue that may not be such a bad thing, because now when you go on a date, you're gonna be cautious of who's diddying your drinks, who you're going home with at the end of the, you know what I mean? You're going to be a lot more cautious. The last thing you want is to have a claim to have a rape baby when you're on camera partying it up in the bar. You know what I'm saying?
uh, I mean, to your point, yeah, it boils down to nothing more than just making good decisions. But in all honesty, with all the contraceptive options um, that are available today, the morning after pill, there's at least a dozen contraceptive devices that a woman can have. A man can be a vasectomy and condoms. Have having said that, all the contraceptive options that they have today, I'm of the opinion that an unwanted pregnancy is the height of irresponsibility today. You almost have to try to get somebody pregnant today because there's no excuse. There's literally no excuse for an unwanted pregnancy today with all the things that are available.
So I'm pulling up Project 2025
Uh,
and
real, real, real quick,
contraceptive.
Norm. We had mentioned, you know, uh, Winning Strategies, their website. There's a website already, the National Parents Organization (NPO).
Mhm.
they actually already put out a grade. They give every state a grade for their their vis-a-vis their standard of what they believe uh, what state laws should be in regards to equal parenting, and they actually give out every state has a grade. I think California has like a C, but in
Mhm.
my only issue with NPOs grade that they put out every year, it's really the only thing they do is they give the state a grade based on just the written legislation, which me and you both know that there is a big difference between the actual law and how it's applied. Because in California, if you read the actual California Family Law Code, reading it, it's actually fair. It's just what the law actually says. The law
Mhm.
specifically, and this is grounds for a major class action lawsuit, in my opinion, in California. But the law specifically states that gender is not to be used as a determination in awarding of custody. Right? It literally says that in several places. It literally says that. Okay, well, how is it moms win custody upwards of 90% of the time if gender is not a determining factor? Okay,
I
anybody that's had statistics know that the statistics says that a 60-40 split is proof of
mhm.
bias. If it's not the only split that you can't start scratching in head and start and say that bias is not present is about a 55 to 45% split.
Well,
Okay,
let's let's
60%
let's
is proof of bias, but we got a split that's 90%. That's proof, in my
well,
opinion. That's proof of outright corruption.
let's look at Project 2025 according to Gut Matcher, as far as the facts. And number 6 on here, it says attacks on contraception. So it says Project 2025 seeks to severely undermine two cornerstones of U.S. contraception provisions: Title X, the nation's publicly funded family planning program, and federal contraceptive coverage guarantee of the Affordable Care Act. The plan proposes reinstating the harmful domestic gag rule, which would prohibit healthcare providers who receive Title X funding from providing abortion referrals for those who would require them for physically and financially separating from any abortion related to activities, including counseling, within about a year of this policy going into effect in 2019. Before it was rescinded, RESCND, rescinded, and
Rescinded.
rescinded. Thank
Uh,
you. Before it was rescinded in 2021, we'll edit that.
mm,
Hundreds of clinics left the program, and the number of patients served dropped out by 2 million or 2.4 million. Project 2025 goes further and recommends legislation that would prohibit Title X funding from going to titles that perform uh, healthcare to fund abortion, but it's not saying anything about condoms in here. So you could still use condoms. They're just
well,
talking
now,
about you trying to have an abortion just because you're poor.
yeah. I mean, it's a lot of things. I'm not a Trump supporter. I didn't vote for Trump. I voted for the
Ditto.
Green. I voted for the Green Party.
Good for
Uh,
you.
um, Trump has gone on record saying that he does not support Project 2025, but I believe it. I call balls and strikes in American politics. I believe he said that with a nod and a wink. In all honesty,
Gotcha.
technically he didn't do it, but he's not. Come on. This is the Republican Party. They do everything on the behalf of the Republican Party. But in America, you're dealing with a lot of situations. I mean, white people are looking at the demographic reality of uh, the birth rate is down. Okay, the marriage rate is lower than it's ever been. The birth rate is lower than it's ever been. If you don't have people to govern, you don't have a government. Okay, so they are trying to head a population catastrophe. They're trying to head that off. So I see what they're doing with this, but this all, population collapse all stems back to why are they conducting family law in the manner that they're conducting it, right? It disincentivizes anyone from having children, from have not in addition to the fact, I mean, you have the way family law is, and then you also have the way that the economy is. Now, who can even afford a kid?
Correct.
So,
So I
so
guess there's a bunch of push and pull, I mean, politically, but when it comes down to it, automatically, it's the fear mongering aside, it comes down to, are you going to be able to be a king of your castle as far as fathers?
mhm,
And
mhm.
are you going to have any say so in your legacy, or are you just going to be somebody who produces children for the American, military complex or the corporate America, slave system? That's what
Well,
it comes down to.
that's part of the problem, right? Uh, they want to reduce the impact of fathers. They don't want um,
They're
in
gone
regards to,
breeders.
yeah, well, in regards to family law, this is I think the actual agenda, right? If you're an outside invading force, you want to attack the other army's men, right? You
Hmm.
want to make them as weak as possible, as unmasculine as possible. And when you think about that in your mind, then look at the world and you see exactly what they're, what they're doing. We got men that don't want that. We got men in this society that want to be women, and we got women that want to be men. Okay, either one of those scenarios is a bad idea when you're talking about trying to create or maintain a standing army. Okay, do you want an army filled with men that want to be women, or women that want to be men? It's which soldier do you want? And if those were the two options, I wouldn't want either.
So without overextending, because we're trying to blend a cliff to the seaside here, talking about government and the military versus your home. You know what I mean? As far as like, and what you're saying is absolutely valid. You're absolutely right. But the way I'm seeing it is like it's a push and pull not only with family rights, it's the fear mongering and family education, or homeschooling versus, conventional general education, or public education versus
Mm-hmm.
private school, you know what I mean? And it's like everything, it's like coming together perfectly for some Rockefeller conspiracy of a takeover where they're able to perfectly now blend social media with fear mongering, with placement, with financial stability. And now everybody within, let's say, and I'm just spitballing, let's say 2030, now everybody's going to know exactly what class they're in. And the middle class is going to be this big, and they're going to be the helpers of the upper class. And then the poor are going to be like the biggest, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you're right
And the
about
poor and the poor are just going to be satisfied with subsidized housing, no chance of owning anything, just being part of a
that.
colony, basically.
You're right. I mean, because in the family law context, people are afraid to get married, right? So that limits the number of people who can even afford a house. Because who can afford people can barely afford a house together, right? And people are afraid to get married. So who can afford a house on their own with one income? So it's um, the plan is working so well that that's proof that somebody's behind it. There's an agenda because it's effective.
Yeah, and it's crazy because
I always say this, Norm, real quick, that excuse me, feminism works so well. That's proof that women ain't behind it.
no doubt, I think they're being weaponized just like anybody else. I think
Why
what it
women
comes
ain't behind
down
it?
to,
Because I
what
don't
it
know
comes
nothing
down
that a
to,
woman does that is effective.
well, I'm saying as far as like divide and conquer, as far as weaponizing like the races, they're also weaponizing the genders, they're weaponizing the sexes, which is different
Yep.
from the genders now. You know what I mean? So
So
it's there's like so many divisions that are happening, and then when it comes down to election time, they're like, oh well, you can't be on our island because you only believe 75% of what MAGA or what the left believes or whatever it is, who's part of Tea Party or whoever,
Uh,
whoever's in power. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, you can't be part of our club because you're not indoctrinated. And so I think one of the things that we could do, as far as trying to problem solve all this shit that we're spitballing as far as issues, as far as solutions is, what do you think about getting rid of the popular vote, or not the popular vote, but as far as like the electoral college, and as far as making winner takes all, have it be on like on a voting system where these policies get voted in whether your candidate wins or not. You're putting them in to make sure that the people's agenda is pushed. So let's say you are voted in as a Republican because we want to save the border, but at the same time we want our abortion rights back. So we want to make sure that not winner takes all, that we get the border and no abortion rights, you know what I mean, type shit.
well, I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with the electoral college. I mean, it was instituted, to create some balance and fairness, and so that the larger states wouldn't necessarily dominate the federal government. Each state gets two senators, regardless. There's two California senators and there's two North Dakota senators. So I don't think that I don't have a problem really with the electoral college because it's an attempt at equalizing the
But do you
input.
but do you think, as far as like the popular vote, and it's just like overwhelming, do you think it would be fair to bring the electoral college? Let's look at Hillary Clinton. You know what I mean? Bringing the electoral college in when she dominated the popular vote. You know what I mean? Type shit. And I'm not saying she should have won. I'm not trying to re-argue that, but I'm just
Uh,
showing where you're talking about balance versus what the people want versus what Congress or the upper launches want. You know what I mean? Type shit.
yeah, I get that 100%, but I still would come down on the side of the electoral college because you have the fact that then if it was just a popular vote, uh, only thing people would care about, or the only thing or the people running for government would care about is what people in New York, Texas, Florida, and California have to say about anything.
But
So,
that's what we have right now. We have our battleground states, and
I
you
mean,
just
yeah,
named those battleground
I was
states.
gonna get, I was gonna get into, the fact that that kind of happens now anyway. So I think,
Hmm.
there's some adjustments that I would make. I'm of the opinion that, there's no need for a state that has less than a million peoples in their population, i.e., North Dakota, South Dakota. There should just be one Dakota, and you probably throw in Wyoming, that whole little northwest little corner of Idaho, North Dakota, Montana. That should just be one state. Because
Well, I mean, that's easy to say when you're not from that area with no family ties. I mean, I'm pretty sure
I mean,
the
but no,
Hatfields and the Hatfields and McCoys will feel some type of way about
I
that
get it.
shit.
I get it. But what is the point of a state that has less population than Riverside County here in California? What's the point of that?
Well, I mean, so what you're talking about is eventually, I mean, why stop there? Why don't we just make it one fucking state?
That's what I'm saying. Just combine to me,
The
North
whole
Dakota,
year, so there's no federal
Montana,
and no, so there's no state, so there's no balance between state
oh, you're talking
versus
about
federal.
no states.
You're
There's
going to
just
federalize the government.
well, I mean, to a lot of degree, the federal government does have sway over a lot of issues in regards to.
But not for the protection of like federal crimes that are done in the state. So if you federalize it, let's look at Trump, for instance, and what he did in New York. If we made everything one fucking federal state, there's nothing to say, hey, you can't be criminalized. You could become president again and you can wipe away the charges federally, but now you committed a state crime. So you got to be held accountable. So how are we going to stop there from being another king if we federalize everything? We're just going to turn
Yeah,
it
I mean,
back into a monarchy.
yeah, I hear what you're
And
saying.
then family rights then there is no family rights.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but the lines of distinction between the three branches of government, bro, have been eroded uh, since this country was started. They started eroding because there's supposed to be a distinct line between all. Is it three branches or four branches, but the executive, legislative, and judicial. So
Right.
uh, anybody that has been involved in family law certainly knows that um, there's rampant corruption going on as far as the legislative process. In family law, there's only one judge, who's the judge, the jury, executioner, tax collector, the awarder of pensions. They do everything. That's not the way that this government's supposed to work. The reason why
And not
there's
only that, they don't let the news in family court because of
that
hiding
part,
behind children.
that part,
And they and
there's a
even if you're pro
transparency issue.
se, it's hard. Even if you're pro se representing yourself in family court, it's damn near impossible to get any past records or any film footage or audio of past hearings when a judge does
Yeah,
overstep their bounds and you do want to
they're
do a
they're
judicial
they're
review.
they're, they're erasing proof of their crime. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
But to your original point about the electoral college, is it the best system? I mean, we've already pointed out, some of the issues with the electoral college. I don't think it's the best system. I think it's better than just the popular vote. Um, would I create or make any changes to it? Like I said, I don't that little middle west north cluster of states. I think Wyoming only has 250,000 people in the whole state. I think that just needs to be one state. North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana need to just be that should just be one state. Um, how would you make it a little bit more? Maybe you need to. California needs to be two states, Northern and Southern California.
There's going to be a lot of people that would economically that would disagree with that because if you split up the state, you got to think of Silicon Valley and
Yeah,
as far as corporations, they are not going to let you divide the state. They'll let you divide the people, but they're not going to let you divide the real estate. They're already
no,
too ingrained.
there,
I think the roots are too far in.
there's been a movement, going back, several years. It has been discussed. I think it had actually even been discussed on the state Senate floor. It's
Mhm.
never been brought to a vote, but it has been discussed. The issue is, trying to create parity and objectivity, fairness, representation for everybody in the country. Maybe divide the country into four regions, like just, straight down the middle from like, I guess, Iowa
Like a pie.
down, and then across, yeah, just four regions. Um, to create, the parity in the assignment of, you know, who wins president. I don't know. I mean, something. I mean, but you understand that that was the idea behind the electoral college. So trying to create like a fair system of awarding who is the president, right? Maybe separating states and doing it the way that we've been doing it. Maybe that needs to be reassessed. But the idea of, once again, having a fair system, not necessarily just putting it in the hands of, just the at large popular vote, and
Mhm.
creating a fair system that is, equitable to whether you live in Southern California, whether you live in Montana, whether you live in New Jersey. Your voice was heard equally as every other person. Um, Maybe we need to reassess how we do that. But I don't disagree with the logic or the thinking behind the electoral college. I think they're on the right track with that. In all honesty.
I don't know. I think before we start dividing up and doing all that, I think we need to bring in like America Samoa, Puerto Rico, Guam, you know what I mean? DC,
I
all
mean,
these
yeah,
places that don't have a
you
they
haven't even
tax,
brought,
they're
yeah,
being taxed without representation.
you haven't even brought that up, right? Okay, the DC statehood, like if you that would be a black state, right? A lot of FB Foundational Black Americans, people that Black nationalists, we've always advocated for DC statehood. Now, DC statehood, and we just talked about North and South Dakota, Montana, and Idaho. Are you aware that the District of Columbia has a larger population than 4 states that I just mentioned?
Mm-hmm.
And they do not have a senator because it's not a state. They
Right.
have a DC. DC has essentially like a overseer, a
Yeah, they
congressional.
basically they have a steward. They have a
Yeah,
steward that sits in the place, but they don't get a vote.
yeah. That they don't
They
get to
get a
vote for.
voice.
Yeah,
Yeah, they get a
they don't get
voice,
to vote for who
but
this
they don't get a
overseer.
count.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the overseer is somebody from a different state.
usually.
And
Yeah,
this is
it's crazy the way it's set up right now because I know a lot of people that I've seen online as far as like doing my research. There's a lot of, especially people that were in the military that lived in Guam and America Samoa, and even in
Mhm.
Puerto Rico that served in the armed forces,
Oh
and they
yeah,
can't even vote. They can't even
Puerto
vote
Rico.
because of where they.
Puerto Rico should be given the same option to become a full-fledged state. What is taking
Yep.
so long? I agree. I agree
But
with you.
what's taking so long is the
Power.
oligarchs have not
Yeah, exactly.
exactly have not distributed power.
Somebody will
You
start getting a
know,
check.
so that's why they want to make sure that their kids are not having abortions, so they can start. Once those lands open up, they could do like Gaza and make it beachfront property.
Yeah,
Message.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing with Trump and his son is on record saying that. But I mean, in all honesty, Democrats bought this on themselves, bro.
Oh yeah, it's. I mean, Nancy Pelosi at the end of the day would have no problem sitting next to Donald Trump if it meant that they have to show the public how to share power or how to keep power. You know what I mean? The perception. You know what I mean? If it was really a battle between them, we would have went down to and without trying to get demonetized, but with somebody trying to unalive Trump not once, not twice, I think 3 times before he was even president. I mean, I think it would if it was really that political and that serious and that feuding, that it would have been more professionally done than just having
Yeah.
some sloppy, you know what I mean? Shit happened a guy at the golf course. Get the fuck out of here. I mean, there's no way that was a political type shit. If anything, I would go down the conspiracy rabbit hole and say that the guy was a plant just so they could keep up, you know what I mean, the popularity because he loves being in the news.
Well, I mean, Democrats could have held on to the presidency in 2016 and 2020 if they would have did one thing. Where do you think I'm going with this?
If they would have did one thing,
One
would have
thing.
been honest with the people,
Elect Bernie Sanders.
oh, then that wouldn't have been a Democratic presidency. It would have been an independent president.
Well, I mean, he was running as a Democrat.
That facts. But yeah, but I don't know. I don't know. Well, I don't know. I think as far as like, I think they would have probably did the same thing they did to Obama as far as the Republicans and Mitch McConnell to Bernie Sanders that they did to Obama as far as
He could have
stonewalling
tried,
him.
but I mean, he would have had the voice of the people behind him. You would have tried, but I mean, as quiet as it's kept, Bernie said, okay, the reason why he didn't beat Hillary Clinton is because she had the entire DNC. Hillary Clinton was paying the bills for the DNC during the 2016 DNC primary. To give you an analogy of what that means, okay, me and you're the Arizona Cardinals. I'm the
Mhm,
Las Vegas or the LA Rams, right? Okay, but
mhm.
I'm paying for the refs. The refs are actually, members of my coaching staff. Okay, how fair do you think that game's going to be?
It's not
That's
because they know where their
that's
loyalty
essentially
comes
it.
from at the end of
That's
the day.
essentially what happened. Hillary Clinton was paying she was writing everybody's paychecks, signing everybody's checks. So how fair is that process going to be?
The same thing happened with the RNC this time with him putting nepotism, horseface, whatever her fucking name is. Like
Oh, he didn't
the
do
reason I'm calling her horseface is because Donald Trump and them apparently used to call her horseface before she married Eric Trump, but Laura Trump before they put her
that.
in charge and she ran up all the funds and everything for his apparently.
Yeah.
And I'm just and again I wasn't there, but I'm just going off what I'm seeing on the news. But apparently they control the DNC's treasury or the RNC's treasury.
Right.
So, I mean, everybody was employed through Trump. I mean, he pulled the same thing the Clintons did and turned it into a swamp.
Yeah. And yeah, in 2020, I mean, a lot of people uh, neglect. I mean, they buried this fact, but Bernie Sanders won California in 2020. All right.
I can't
Typ-
disagree with you. All I can see is these
Typically,
politicians are learning very more quickly than we are because they're hiring political scientists, historians, and if you go back and look, and not to go down a whole
mhm,
racial rabbit hole, but as far as like education for us that are educated and not looking at this through a racial lens, you look
mhm,
at Rome and how Rome took on all these slaves and all these immigrants into Italy, in near Rome, and how their political system, as far as voting, got skewed, whether it was because of blended families or obligations, contracts, or who could have the right to vote as far as ownership versus what they did in wartime, voting or whatever.
mhm,
The point is the slaves outnumbered the politicians according to historical events. So
mhm,
that was part of Rome's fall. So you have a new empire, such as the Empire of England or the Empire now of the United States. England didn't use slave labor, more or less like the United States did as far as to build this empire. So as
mhm,
far as them getting past the hump of their immigrants, slaves, whatever you want to call us, as far as their outside help and them managing who is building their legacy or their empire or whatever, they got through that by learning from the Romans and saying, okay, this is what we'll do.
mhm.
We'll instill the electoral college. So we have a 2-for-1. We have slaves that we don't want to vote and we don't want to do the Reclamation Act and the blending and you know what I mean, make slave legal and all
You
that.
speak of the 3/5
The three-fifth
compromise.
law, yeah, exactly. So we
Uh,
want the electoral college in so we can enforce the 3/5. And
mhm,
that's what it comes down to. And even right now with gerrymandering and all that, we have echoes of that. And I don't even want to use the racial overtone, but that oligarch learnage, where only the educated get that higher education. We get that
yeah.
education to learn how to manage debt. We get that education on how to start a business, whether we're successful or not, is one way or another, because eventually we're going to get bought out by Amazon or Google or whatever. But as far as our education, they think we're paying for not even their type of private education because they're getting that generational firsthand look. This has been passed down for 7 generations. This brewery in Milwaukee, you know what I mean? And these kids, because when I do crime and interrogations, I do background checks, and I'm finding out, okay, this guy is connected to this senator whose family has owned this winery in upper state New York since the 1800s.
What do you think?
No
Have you
wonder why the business and politics all connects.
have you heard about the guy that made an app that just tabulates how senators invest, right? Because they are, the lobbyists, and
The
they,
stock market.
they,
Yeah.
yeah, they have the insider information, and he just tabulates how, what they put, where they put their money, and people are making money just copying them. Have you heard about that app?
Yeah, they started it when COVID, because they wanted to see what Nancy Pelosi really was
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, and that's who they always point out the fact that we just copy Nancy Pelosi's investment strategy.
I know her investment strategy is like
She got
100% of her.
there. But the Queen of England,
Man,
the Queen of England gets. This is why they're still like the top 5 richest people in the world, because they get firsthand information from MI6, which is
insider
England's
trading.
CIA. CIA.
Yeah.
They get insider information on the real state of the world. So I mean, they know that, hey man, maybe you want to invest in Brazil, or maybe you
Well,
want to
as
put some
far
money
as
over
crime and politics go, I mean, we saw it plain as day with COVID. It was exposed, but because of the pandemic, nothing was done about it. Where Democrats and Republicans were moving their stocks according to PPE. So you know what I mean, as far as the need, and they did it weeks before they announced that COVID was an issue because they knew that everybody was going to get facial masks and they were going to promote facial masks. You see how hard they were promoting facial masks and hand sanitizers, and every one of them invested it. And not only that, they got the COVID loans for whatever businesses they had, and they hurry up and went and started these, you know, little small businesses and got millions of dollars, and then got to write them off if they were in Congress. Marjorie Taylor Greene, basically every Republican except for like probably 5 of them did it, and there was probably like I think 12 Democrats that did shit.
Speaking of COVID, and I got to get out of here, Norm.
Yeah.
Speaking of COVID, and I think I've told you this before too, that you know if Trump wins, COVID's going to come back. You heard it here first. COVID's going to come back.
Eric's trying to call me.
Okay.
We'll wrap this up.
Yeah, let's wrap this up.
All right, my guy. I'll talk to you later, man. Thanks for
Okay.
participating.